Welcome to the Select Star Podcast, your resource for innovative technology, developer topics, and more. Here's your host, Margot McCabe from the HarperDB team.
Great, we are live. So welcome everyone to the Select Star Podcast. Thanks for tuning in with us today. We have a super exciting guest today, and I think this might actually be the last episode of our first season of the podcast. So it's a good closer to have, no pressure or anything, but today we have Charlie Gerard, who recently moved to Seattle. She is a senior front-end dev at Netlify. And I'll let you, Charlie, talk a little bit more about, your background and stuff once we jump into it, but thanks for joining us and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Before we jump in, I should give a disclaimer that I am watching another dog this week. So there's not 2, but 3 dogs running around in the background. So I tried to tire them out as much as possible this morning, but if you hear some noises, sorry about that. But yeah, thanks for joining, Charlie. So it's great to have you. I'd love to get started to just hear a little bit about you and your background, what you're working on. I know you said you just moved to Seattle, but I didn't even ask where you moved from. So
well, I mean, with the pandemic, it's a little bit weird. I mean, like from France just before Seattle, but originally I was in Sydney before the pandemic. I had been there for 8 years. So I think, yeah, I was supposed to move to Seattle much earlier on, but with the pandemic, that kind of put it on pause a bit.
Okay, got it. Well, I think Seattle's a good choice. It's a great city. I love visiting, and not too far from where we are in Denver. So
yeah,
easy to get to. What part of Sydney were you living in?
The city. I mean,
in the downtown. Yeah, I'd lived in Bondi for about a year after college many years ago. So I love it and I miss it. My husband and I were gonna try to get back down to Australia a couple of years ago, but obviously didn't with the pandemic. So I've been dying to go back.
It is still home to me. I mean, just in my heart, I'm gonna say, but it's definitely out of Australia.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so did you move to Seattle for work related or just kind of wanted to change? Did you, were you with Netlify before you moved?
Well, so when I decided to leave Sydney, it's because I think at the time, so in 2019, I was doing a lot of conferences. So I was traveling a lot, and from Australia, if you go to Europe, it's 2 flights, 24 hours. And if you go to the US, it's sometimes 15 hours as well. So I was traveling maybe at least once every 6 weeks, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
You're basically all the time. And I started thinking, well, I already wanted to change job. So I wanted to try the whole remote thing because I think that I'm not really a 9 to 5 person. I have a lot of energy in the morning, but then beginning of afternoon, I get really tired. I need to do something else. And when you work in an office, I found that it was a bit hard. So I applied for Netlify, and I knew that they're kind of semi-global company. So, and I know that they could sponsor me to come to the US, and I really liked Seattle when I had come here for Cascadia JS before. So I was thinking, well, what about trying to live in the US? It was never a plan for me before, but I was thinking, why not?
Yeah.
So then I mixed the whole new job, new country thing. I kind of either I do a lot or I do nothing, and that was all at once.
Just do it all at once. Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, I've heard Netlify is a great company and connected with some really cool people there. So I think it seems like you probably have a huge support system with them.
People are definitely great over here.
Yeah. Very cool. And so, I'd love to hear a bit about, what it is, I guess, that you're currently working on. I know you're a front-end dev. Are there any specific projects you're focusing on within that? Kind of how you got to being where you are? Have you always been in front-end development? I'd love to hear a bit about your journey.
So at Netlify, I've actually had 2 roles. So for a bit more than a year and a half, I was on the product team. So if you're using Netlify, I was working on the builds list and deploys list pages. because we're split into like areas of the product. But recently I've been doing a rotation in the developer experience team. So at the moment, that's more what I'm working on, looking at, the different new frameworks and how to, create content or templates or little projects to show people how to use that on Netlify. So I've been trying that for a couple of months, and I think I'm planning on staying in that team. I think there's a moment where maybe I felt like I was doing the same thing on the product and I wanted a bit of a change. And I've never done developer experience before. I was a bit worried at first, but actually it's a challenge because it's different. And that's what I like to do. I like to try new things, seeing where I can improve, or, discovering, oh, actually, I'm not too bad at doing that. And just going from there. But otherwise, before in my career, mostly, I started as a full stack engineer, and then really gravitated kind of like naturally towards front end. I thought it was where I'm like what I'm the most excited about. But originally, I'm not a dev. I started, my first job was in marketing. I studied marketing and advertising. So I started from there and then worked with people who were devs. And I was like, oh, that looks cool. Can I do it too? And then did a bootcamp, and now I'm in tech, and I think it was the right choice for me. Definitely not going back to marketing. No problem with marketing people, but I'm more excited about coding.
Well, good. That's always good to hear. It sounds like, everyone has a different path, obviously, to getting into tech and getting into coding. And it's so fun to talk to different people about how they got there, and they all have that same revelation of like, this is why, some people get nervous about not having the right background or not studying computer science, but once you get there, there's so many different avenues. And so that's really cool. And I was going to say, I'm curious with the background in marketing, if that helps a little bit provide a different perspective or different angle on developer experience, because developer experience itself is kind of a combination of like user interface, it's the experience of people working with the product, right? And so I wonder if there's a little bit of merging with marketing there in terms of like the creative side and making sure that you're appealing to the right audience and to your customers and things. So I'm sure it's given you an interesting perspective.
I do think it has helped me. I wouldn't be sure exactly in what way, but I think that definitely, I think, well, in terms of communication skills, it's obviously something that I had to work on pretty early on. And also when I studied advertising and marketing, we had to do a lot of like pitches and competitions and all of these public speaking skills a little bit, even though it wasn't conferences. I wasn't doing conferences at the time, but you had to like learn to get out of your comfort zone and try to be creative and communicate and think about what people like how to convey a certain message to get people interested in something, or how to break down a problem into smaller pieces so that people feel it's accessible. And it's definitely something that I do now in developer experience. But I feel like even earlier on in my career as a dev, more focused on the product, I think I still used that. That helped me in like pairing sessions, because I always thought about whoever I was pairing with, or who the audience is, or even when I started as a consultant at ThoughtWorks, that was also part of it. It's like talking to the clients and not using the technical terms that I would use with my dev team, but trying to find other ways to explain a concept to people so that everybody would be on the same page. This is where you really see that communication skills is extremely important. And I think that my background in marketing has made it a bit easier for me to have that as well in tech.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great way to look at it. I'm curious too, with developer experience, would you say that, do you work alongside kind of the Department of Developer Advocacy? Does that go hand in hand a little bit in terms of like getting, taking product feedback from the community, kind of advocating for the product, making sure people are using it correctly, or is it kind of different? I'm only curious because I've spoken with a lot of developer advocacy, DevRel type people, and I haven't spoken as much with developer experience. So I'm curious if those overlap, and I know it's different with every company, but
I'm too new to this to understand the difference between the two.
Okay, maybe there is a lot of overlap there.
to me, I think at the moment it's, I mean, if people, on Twitter or in our support channel are asking for something, then we can relay that message back to our product team, for feature requests and things like that. But what I'm focusing on at the moment is more creating content so that, for example, if somebody wants to create a new site using Solid.js on Netlify, then, I create the template and I create the content and I try to make it, look accessible for people, like, hey, if you want to try Solid.js, well, you can do easily with like Netlify, and this is how you would do it. So I don't really know actually that maybe I'm too new. Maybe, later down the track, I'll understand the difference between the two. Right now, I'm probably not the right person.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. There, there might be a lot of overlap though. There's so many different terms, and at every company, one term can mean something completely different for the next company. And so like I even was talking with someone recently who said senior software engineer at one place might be way, way higher than at another place that has a much flatter structure and things like that. So
that's for sure.
I was just curious because I've been with my company HarperDB for several years now, and I've kind of transitioned over the last year or so into more like DevRel type of community support type role, and I've learned a lot about what that means and spoken with a lot of really cool people in that. And then I hear another term and I'm like, oh, that sounds really similar. So it's interesting. Although definitely what you're doing is a lot more technical and developer focused than kind of the background and experience I have, but very cool. And so I know you also said that you work a lot on side projects, that you have some creative projects you're doing, I think you said outside of work. Is that, do you just like to tinker and play around with different things? Do you work on like open source projects? What do you like to do in that realm?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I do. I find open source quite difficult sometimes to jump in. I've contributed to a few, repositories that I was interested in, like the Johnny 5 library to do little robots in JavaScript, because I think that was really something that I was excited about. So if there's something that I wanted to add, I've contributed to that. But I find otherwise there are some times where I find it a bit difficult to contribute to a project that's already there. I think it takes a lot of time to get to know the code base and then finding an issue that you think you can contribute to. But I make all of my projects open source. So if we can call that open source, then I mean, I guess it's kind of like contributing to open source.
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah, but I think to me, coding is really super creative, but I guess on the job it's business, so you build things to make money, right? And I use side projects to explore the creative side of it. That is what really excites me. It's like problem solving but with a creative twist, and I get to decide what I build and I get to like experiment on the side. And that's also the way that I get to explore technologies that I don't really get to play with at work. So yeah, I see a lot of benefit in doing it, but it takes a lot of time, and it's like finding ways to fit that into your schedule as well.
Right.
But, yeah.
There's only so many hours in the day, and there's so many things to learn and so many technologies out there. It's hard to keep up. Are there any new technologies you're playing around with right now or trying out at the moment, or new frameworks or anything that you're excited about?
I'm still playing around with machine learning in JavaScript, but that has been that I've kind of been doing that for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But on my list, I really wanted to look into WebAssembly. I read a really interesting book about it, and I was experimenting a little bit, but I feel like I would need more time to really dive into it more. But yeah, I would like to go back into doing a bit of like hardware stuff with Arduino. I put that on the side for a little bit and I miss it now. I want to build like physical things and not only digital. But yeah, at the moment, nothing really super concrete. I got like a new brain sensor maybe a couple of months ago. And I was just like, I want to play with it, but then you're busy with so many other things. So yeah, that's also a problem when I'm excited about a lot of different projects, and then it's hard to not jump from one to the other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm definitely like that with with things even outside of tech and work and things where, when you get so excited about doing everything at once, it's like, okay, do I finish this first or do I start all of them at once and then move around? I think I try to use to-do lists to help me with that because it feels so good to like cross things off.
It helps as well to track your progress. I do that too. Because sometimes I feel it's easier to forget that you've been learning things or that you've been like achieving things. And when I write a to-do list of my projects, I can look back a few months later and be like, oh, I did build what I wanted to build. Right now, I don't feel like I did, but hey, I have this proof.
Yeah, I've got the proof right here. Exactly. So have you always worked with JavaScript then? Was that kind of what you started, when you started out learning how to code and switched over to development? Did you start with JavaScript or how did you, I know it's extremely popular, but how did you fall into that?
The very first language that I coded with, I think was a processing. When I was doing little animation game stuff, it was like really bad, but that's what got me excited when I learned about like loops and things like that. But then when I did my bootcamp, it was full stack. So backend was Ruby and front end was JavaScript, and we tried like Backbone JS, and Angular 1 was huge at the time. So my love for JavaScript started pretty early on. I don't know why. It's like I remember that, I don't know, people like don't like it or find it weird sometimes, and for some reason I wrote it like it was English. I don't know why. To me it made sense, so I rolled with it.
Well, that's good. It sounds like you had a smooth journey with it. I know, as you said, some people have a love-hate relationship with it maybe, but it's so popular. I think it's hard to avoid. And I think it's funny seeing on Twitter and social media how people love to have like battles, and they're always joking about like, if you just make a tweet with hashtag JavaScript, it's going to blow up because it just is so popular. So it's always funny hearing people's opinions on it. It sounds like you've had a pretty good experience.
I think because of all the fun things that you can do with it, it's hard for me not to like it. It's like all of these, like you can do animations, you can do like web VR, you can do music in JavaScript. I think that's probably what made me the most excited. It's like the amount of things you can do with JavaScript now. Whereas I think maybe when I learned Ruby at first, I think, well, at the time you could do a bit of hardware with Ruby. There was a library for it, but I found it a little bit more restrictive in terms of how creative you could be. So I think that definitely, I think when you're excited about something, then it's easier to go through like the pain of learning it, because that at the end you're excited. So
that makes sense. That's a good way to put it. I think, it's kind of one of those things different people say you have to do a little bit every day, or you have to take some time off and try to do like a couple month course or something and do it. Everyone has different ways of learning, but if you're enjoying it, then obviously it's going to be a lot easier, and it doesn't feel so much like something you have to do or like torture. And so I think that's one of the cool things about the tech community. There's so many options and so many different paths you can take. If you start one and it doesn't feel right, it seems that it's, semi easy to transition and try something different and figure out what really works. And as you said, you did full stack education. So I'm sure if you wanted to move away from front end at any point and try something different, that you have the freedom to do that. So
sometimes Ruby has probably evolved a lot since I learned it, but I know that at Netlify, parts of the backend are in Ruby. So sometimes I go and I have a look and I'm like, oh, I understand that. Or, sometimes if I know that there's, the API is not returning what I'm looking for, sometimes I go and I find where the change should be. And I just, ping a backend person and being like, hey, I kind of need this. Do you mind like doing a little PR? And I link them directly to the file, just as like a little fun thing that I'm like, I still got this.
Good to do self-checks like that once in a while. So I'm curious, if there's people listening that are early in their career or wanting to transition or anything like that, if you have general tips for people wanting to get to a similar role or wanting to get to a similar type of company as where you're at now, or even just tips from, when you decided that you were going to switch from marketing into what you're doing now, any pivotal moments when you look back that you think were really helpful, or mistakes you might have made. Everyone's journey, of course, is so different. But there's, at the same time, it's almost like there's so many options and so many ways you can learn how to code and get into the industry. So I'm always curious about people's thoughts on that.
Well, as you said, it's so different because of people's backgrounds and reason why they get in the industry as well. I think to me, the pivotal moment, like I did the bootcamp because I knew that if worse comes to worse, I could keep going in marketing. Like, I had a degree in this, so I could have, kept going in that, and I would have had a job. So I had that safety net just of knowing that, I could get back on my feet if that didn't work out. So I guess, I was privileged in that sense. I know that not everybody is in that position. But I guess when I started doing it, I realized that I really liked it. I struggled a lot. I cried many times in my bootcamp because I thought I wasn't smart enough, and I was just like, I'm never gonna get this, and I felt super stupid. And it's just, it's only, I think it's actually only on the last week of the bootcamp that for some reason it ticked, and I don't know what exactly it ticked, but all of a sudden I looked back at my project and I was like, but I do get this. Like, what did I not understand before? So sometimes if people are, struggling when they're trying to learn, it's pushing through it. But if you are interested, because, I've met people who gave it a try and it just wasn't for them. And that's totally fine, But for me, I struggled, but I knew that I liked it. So like I pushed it a bit more, and then, I got it, and it was a bit smoother from there. But then, you're learning new things all the time. You're always out of your comfort zone. So I've gotten used to that feeling. But otherwise, to me, in my career, I always made sure that if I was interested in a job, I applied for it. Even, you can fail, but I'll try again later, and trying to be fearless, even though I know that it's very scary. But, it's never the end of the world. What I'm usually thinking is, if I don't get that job, this company is still probably going to exist in a few years. I'll get some more skills and I'll try again. So, in terms of tips to get started, everybody can do a bootcamp. So I'm really glad that there's some online free resources. There's so many people who are doing free code camp online, and who are then, using the 100 days of code hashtag on Twitter, and who are learning publicly to kind of motivate themselves. I can't really have one particular advice, because it depends on who's going to listen and what they want to do. But if the problem is that you're a bit scared and you're not sure, if you do a free resource, then it's free. The worst thing you can do is waste your time if you realize that you don't like it. But then try to build a network so that maybe somebody can help you find a job afterwards. I don't know how easy or hard it is for junior developers to find jobs at the moment, because I see many companies only wanting to hire senior people, which doesn't really make sense to me. But, I see some companies hiring junior devs, and once you get your first job, then you can learn from people. It's a lot easier. The first, the beginning is always the hardest. But if it's something you're interested in, or if you want your lifestyle to get better, because obviously salaries are better, then that's definitely a motivation that works too. And I think that career is really exciting, and I would, if everybody wants to do it, I would love that. But I understand that there's a lot of barriers. So yeah, that wasn't really that was a long answer, because I didn't really know which way to go. But I think it's scary, but try it out. If you can do it for free, then you're only wasting time, which is important. Time is important. But at least you're not
wasting both time and money.
Yes, exactly.
No, I think that's a really good way to put it. It's kind of you don't have much to lose. Just try it out. You don't have to start by doing some big, fancy, expensive program to learn. There are so many free learning to code resources out there that you might as well try, and maybe try a couple different things and see like what path you want to take. And I mean, also a good reminder that getting that first job is the hardest, because you have to find a company and a team that believes in you and is willing to take on a new junior dev and kind of show you the ropes. And that's probably one of the most disheartening phases, is trying to find that. But as you said, once you get it, it's like, it's just going to be a lot easier moving forward from there. And so maybe people, can't be, I guess, too picky about what that first role is, because no matter what it is, they'll be learning. So
I mean, at least, if you can be sure that it's a company where the culture is helpful to junior developers, because I feel like sometimes people can be discouraged if their first job is actually toxic, but you can't really know that before you start. So it's like a difficult, I think the whole first job thing is definitely the hardest, but the community, often has your back, even though we tend to fight on Twitter. In general, people like to support each other. There's more people who will support you than people who will hate you in general. So it's not that maybe the easiest thing at first, but it is exciting. There's a lot of opportunities, and there's great people and great things to build.
I think that's one of the really cool things about social media and all these different, developer blogging platforms now. There's so many different resources and avenues where you can ask for help, or if someone was looking for their first job out of a boot camp, they could try to find some people that are at that company and get a feel for the culture by seeing what they're posting and talking about, or even reach out and ask questions. And I know it's not a requirement to have that presence. I know a lot of, people are more introverted and don't want to take their extra time doing that. But from what I've seen, I mean, it can be so helpful. And as you said, for the most part, people are overwhelmingly willing to help and step up. And even when they are fighting, it's like a joke, it seems like. So
people get caught up in drama. I mean, I don't really understand. I just let it, I keep scrolling.
Exactly. There's always going to be a little bit, but I think for the most part, like it's probably another thing that seems really intimidating to jump into, but it seems like the tech and developer community is so strong. And I was surprised, because I hadn't even really used Twitter much before. And it's cool to see like how far and wide it really stretches. So it's another.
I don't know if it's a front end specific thing, because I think my experience is mostly in front end, and I think it might be a characteristic of the front end community that it's more open and creative, and I'm not sure about the rest. Actually, that would be interesting to know. But I know that if people are interested in getting into front end, that's for sure a fun space to be in.
That's a really good point. I just saw someone the other day post like, all I see on Twitter is front end, where are all the back end people at? And a bunch of people were like retweeting it, but then there weren't really that many back end people that were stepping up. And I was like, that's a really good point. Where are they? So you're right. Maybe it is a personality, maybe it is, a personality trait of the group in general to want to be a little bit more actually staying in the back end and not showing their faces. That's kind of funny. Very cool. Well, so do you outside of, being at Netlify, I know you said that you're a speaker. Are you like a content creator? Are you currently doing any speaking gigs coming up, things like that? Or just kind of depends?
I have a couple of conferences coming up. I've done it a lot less over the pandemic, because when they're online, the vibe is different. I enjoy it a little bit less. So I tend to like back off a little bit and give the space to other people. I think that the good thing with online conferences is that, well, then all of a sudden it could really be global. So new speakers could, take the stage, and it didn't have to be faces that you see often. So that's nice. And to me, I like speaking at conferences because, well, I like sharing ideas, but it's also like you get to meet people, and there's this atmosphere that's really exciting that you don't get when you speak online. It's like, well, I'm on my chair and then I'm going to move to my couch. It's like a lot less exciting for me. So I kind of like taking a step back a little bit. But I think I've been working on something that I was excited about. So I submitted at a couple of conferences. So I have like 2 coming up. But I think that I'm probably not going to do it that much until maybe we'll do it in person again, just because I know that the format for me is more exciting in person.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which conferences coming up are you speaking at? I'm just curious if I have them on my calendar. There's always so many going on.
Yeah, I know. So I have one actually next week.
Okay.
That's JavaScript Days.
Okay.
And in November, I have Cascadia.js, which I think is hybrid online in person. And I'm in Seattle, so I think I can just go in person.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm excited to see people.
Yeah, I know. It makes sense. It's something it's interesting because actually right when COVID very first hit, our company we hosted a big in-person event, I think like the week before everything happened or 2 weeks before everything happened. And we had been so excited because it gave us the idea of like, oh, we should start hosting monthly live stream, like code along workshop type events. But we only got to do one in person. And then since then we've been doing them obviously online, and there's obviously pros and cons. Like we get to reach a further audience because we can get international folks dialing in, which is really cool. But we also struggle with, the whole, well, if we're going to record it and put it up on YouTube, there's probably people that would rather just watch it like in a time that works better for them and not attend live. And then it's always a struggle for the speaker because, as you said, there's not maybe as much engagement or maybe not as many questions or something at the end. And so it's definitely like a battle.
I don't know if I'm talking to myself. Like that's, I think to me, that's really sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm getting all excited in front of my computer and there's like nobody on the other side.
When people have gotten so used to now not turning their mics on, or sometimes these live streams don't even have the functionality to do that. So they're also now so used to like waiting and just typing their question in the chat at the end. So as the speaker, it's probably like really disheartening to be like, well, I'll just keep going and assume people are listening.
Yeah, it's just a little bit, it's different. And I think just like me, as I get so excited about my topic, when I don't get the excitement back, it's just a little bit weird. But I think, I'm glad that there's people who enjoy it and who, are taking my place when I don't want to do it. And I think I don't know if it's actually, maybe it is something that's actually going to stay, and that even if we can do it in person, a lot of them are going to do it like online to give opportunities to more people. But I know that, for me, I think I still like to hang out with people.
Yeah, I know. I'm hoping maybe the hybrid approach will catch on, where people can tune in if they don't want to travel for it, but there's still, you still can go to in person so that you get that kind of half and half option. I've talked to a couple people recently where it was hybrid, and it sounds like a good compromise.
They used to, I think some conferences before the pandemic were doing live streaming on YouTube. So, but if people had questions, I don't think that then the questions were relayed to the speaker, but you could still watch. I've watched conferences from my couch in Sydney that was in like Norway, and just cheering my friends from my couch.
There's definitely, it's nice to have that convenience sometimes, but I think nowadays people probably are nervous or maybe unsure about going to things in person, but then for me, when I do it, I'm like, oh, okay, I really missed that human interaction. It is actually so nice to actually see people and not just on a video camera. So
when I've seen only like a couple of people recently, and it was like mostly one-on-one. So if it's one person, that's fine, in the distance, but I definitely haven't done like crowds, and I don't know if I want to yet. Or definitely with distance as well. But
I know,
it's interesting.
One day we'll feel ready for that again, but maybe not yet.
No.
Has it been, so since you started with Netlify virtually, I'm guessing, has it been a challenge to train and learn the ropes at a new company, not in person and not going into an office? Or has it been, maybe everyone's used to it by now, or there's, an extra convenience factor to it? I'm curious because I have several friends that have started new jobs through this, and I don't know if it adds this extra layer of probably extra challenge of actually getting to know your teammates and your culture.
Well, because when I joined Netlify, I knew that I wanted to try the whole remote work thing. So at least it was definitely a choice for me. It wasn't something that I did because of the pandemic, but the thing is, I knew that at some point I would want to hang out with people. So before the pandemic happened, I had this plan of like, okay, if I get lonely, I'll go to this country, see a friend, or I'll go to this conference, there'll be people. So, but I had to cancel all of this, right? So I think it's, there's a difference between remote in the pandemic and normal remote. And definitely so far, most of my experience has been remote in a pandemic, which is not exactly what I wanted. But I do know that that's a normal way of doing remote. But inside the company, I think it's interesting to see how, again, communication is extremely important in a remote environment, and that when you don't communicate properly, you kind of get misaligned and things don't go very well. And maybe that would be, different in different circumstances, but to get to know your team, sometimes we have like social events that we organize like remotely. I think yesterday the front-end team did like a virtual Zoom visit where there was a polar bear, and I couldn't join because I was in other meetings, but I was a bit jealous. But otherwise I still created strong friendships remotely, which I sometimes don't really know like how that happened, but I guess maybe when you go through maybe tough times together, then you tend to get closer. And I think maybe I'm really lucky to have coworkers who are like open-minded and respectful, and you kind of realize very quickly somebody's not doing okay, and you check on them and you jump on like a Zoom call, and yeah, everybody's trying to set up some kind of social time, and it's not only work. What can be difficult is with the time zones, because I used to work in Europe, and one of my good friends is in the US. But I think we kind of still crave this connection with people. So you make it work. Sometimes I work a bit later so that we could kind of pair, and another day we do it differently. But yeah, now as hopefully maybe at some point things will get a bit better in the world. I think that Netlify would want to organize actual in-person team meetings. So, we would fly to a location in like small groups. So, the normal remote work setup where you most of the time are working from home, but then you still do have in-person meeting organized by the company. At some point, I would love to do that. But yeah, it's been an interesting experience. I would like to experience remote in a normal setup that's not the pandemic, but I'll have to wait for that.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. It's kind of similar for me. Our company went fully remote right when the pandemic hit, and we've kind of realized that people are working pretty efficiently, and it works out well, and so we're probably going to be doing it as of now indefinitely. And there's definitely pros and cons. I'm the same. I'm an outgoing social person, and I love seeing people, even if it's just finding one friend that can just meet at a coffee shop and like do a co-working coffee or something. It really like energizes me. But at the same time, I definitely sleep in a little bit longer now, and don't have to think too much about the drive, and I can like walk my dogs at lunch.
That's great. I mean, I love that. I definitely love having a bit more sleep. Or also being able, if I have to book an appointment for something, I can, have it in the middle of the day, and I just tell my team, hey, I'll be away for an hour. I'll catch up on work later. And that's fine. I guess I don't know, it's a bit as if I could live my life more.
Yeah.
Whereas it just being like 9 to 5, and basically you wake up, you work, and you go to bed. Like, I don't know. That might work with me, but who knows, maybe at some point I will not like remote anymore. I don't know. I keep on, I think over the years, I kind of like changed my mind about certain things. I didn't think remote would be a thing I'd enjoy a few, maybe earlier on in my career, but now it fits right with me. I feel like I can make more decisions about my life and how I want to live it, which is nice. Nothing, it doesn't revolve entirely around my job, which is a good feeling to have, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a good point. And it's interesting. I know our team was saying recently that it's been interesting to see that like our developer team specifically has gotten more productive since we've been remote. I mean, I think I've probably been the similar level of productivity, hopefully a little bit more, but probably similar to before. But our dev team specifically just really enjoys being able to really, as you said, like work their own hours. They can work a couple hours in the morning, they can deal with the kids at night, and then like tune in for a couple hours at night, not have to worry about the commute and things like that. And so,
I mean, when you're the most productive, I think you can feel it. It's like, I know when my energy highs are happening, and I can, and then I look at what I'm supposed to do during the day, and I also arrange my tasks based on my level of energy. If there's a bug that I'm really struggling on, then I need to do it when I have a lot of energy. And if I then, I don't know, have to review a PR that I, won't be that much work, then I can do it later on during the day when I know that my brain is a bit fried from the morning.
Right.
And I feel like that helps me be more productive. I know that when I used to go to an office and like a bit after lunchtime, sometimes there was nothing going on through my brain. Like I was just like, I'm tired, I want to go for a walk. And I feel like I was wasting these hours. And then it's like peaks back up around 4 p.m. But then you kind of like go home. I don't want to stay in the office until 6, 7, just because I have energy again. Whereas now I really arrange my day around when I know I have energy. And I think it's, for me, it's more productive. But I think it also comes from years of experience of having seen how I behave throughout the day. I think maybe earlier on in my career, I wouldn't have been able to appreciate remote work the way I do now. I think it would have been a lot more stressful.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those skills of really learning yourself and what works best. And then, having a team that's flexible to understand that and allow that is awesome. And I think that's becoming more and more common these days. So it's good to hear. And I think probably a good tip for people listening of like, you don't have to just strictly sit at your computer during the strict hours. Like it's okay to go get something done and then complete what you need to do later. I mean, obviously
you need breaks. You definitely need breaks. I'm sure that people have had this time where they're looking at a bug for hours and they don't fix it, and then you take a break, you go for a walk, or I don't know, you have a shower or coffee or whatever, and then you come back and you're like, oh, I get it. And all you needed was to step away. But it also comes with this experience of knowing how you work, and knowing when you're just focusing too much on like the wrong thing, or you do need a break. There's nothing wrong at all with breaks. Your brain needs it. So I like these moments when I was like, I need a break, and then I come back and the solution is right in front of me.
I know there's that funny meme that's I don't know exactly what it is, but it's talking about not being able to figure out a bug. And then like the second you lay down to go to bed, right before you fall asleep, you're like, but wait, now I got it.
I hate these moments because then I want to fix it. It's like, it's bedtime.
But at least it comes, as you said, it comes to people in different areas, the shower, on walks, but
definitely the shower in the morning. It's like shower thoughts, it's like, oh, this idea. And
you're like, where's my pen and paper?
But I love it. I don't know, it's so random sometimes that it really shows that your brain is doing work sometimes when you don't feel like it. It's doing like background work. And I love these moments when all of a sudden it takes, you get something and you don't know where it comes from, but your brain did the work. Just trust it.
That's funny. Well, hey, I know we're coming up close to the end here. It's been so fun chatting with you and kind of hearing about your journey. Is there anything before we come to a close, anything coming up at Netlify that we should be excited about or looking out for, or anything else on the side that you're working on? I know you already mentioned the the speaking engagements you have coming up, which I can put links to in the show description. But yeah, anything you're kind of excited about as we get to, it's crazy, but as we start to get near the holidays and the end of the year here.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I could talk about Netlify stuff without
getting in trouble.
Yeah, without telling you all the secrets.
That's fair.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's nothing I can think of right now, nothing particular. I'll probably, after the end of this podcast, my brain will be like, you forgot this. But yeah, no, okay. Just like, yeah, take care of yourself, people.
Yeah. But, well, yeah, and I'll make sure I'll put a link to your social in the show notes as well. And I'm sure if people have specific questions about your journey or what you're working on, they can reach out. Mostly everyone I talk to is like, yeah, I love when people reach out with tech questions and any advice, anything I can do. And so
I'm not always, I don't reply very quickly. Like, I'm not a 1 hour reply kind of person. Like
that's okay.
So I know sometimes people reach out and, it's like I'm busy and I don't reply for a few days, but I love when I can help. Sometimes people ask questions that I don't really know how to help, but when I can, I like to help. So, feel free to ask.
That's fair. You don't have to, you have a job. You don't, you don't also get paid for responding to constant
24/7 support. Yeah.
Yeah. But, thank you so much for taking time to chat. This has been fun, and
thank you.
Hope you enjoy kind of the getting settled into Seattle. It's, I was in Portland not that long ago, but I haven't been to Seattle in a couple of years, and I love it there. So
it is
on my list at some point. The next time traveling feels normal, but
yeah.
But it was great to meet you, and looking forward to keeping in touch. And everyone, thanks for listening, and don't hesitate to reach out if you ever have any questions or feedback or anything, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Select Star, your resource for innovative technology and developer topics. You can find our episodes in all the usual places: Spotify, Apple, Google, RSS, and YouTube. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and share. You can learn more about HarperDB at harperdb.io.